Hello and welcome. You are listening to Gay with God, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Are we still searching? The stories you hear in this podcast will melt your heart and can strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with God. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Gay with God. I'm so excited that you're here, and I appreciate all you who are following us and making that evident on the show page. I really love seeing new names coming up, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. And I appreciate those of you who are downloading and subscribing to the Gay with God podcast, because as you know, that gives us validity and visibility, and getting our message out is really important because we're not there yet, people. We're not there yet. So today's guest, I'm so excited to have Karrie Fletcher with me today. She's an amazing lady, and I virtually met her during the Pray Away documentary that Netflix had on. And if you have not seen that yet, there was a panel discussion, and she was involved in the panel discussions, and she's been involved in many things as she was living her life. So Karrie came out as gay Christian in 2016 after spending 14 years trying to change her sexuality through her involvement in ex-gay ministry, also known as conversion therapy. Since coming out, she has denounced ex-gay ministry, and her passion is to advocate for full inclusion of the LGBTQ community in the church and in society. In 2017, she became actively involved in Q Christian Fellowship and the Reformation Project, two nonprofit organizations at the forefront of the advocacy work for acceptance of gay Christians. She participated in the Reformation Project Leadership Cohort in 2017, which focuses on leadership training and skill development for advancing the conversion of conversation of LGBTQ inclusion in the church. Prior to joining Free Mom Hugs, she led several LGBTQ initiatives in the Dallas area, including the Dallas Fort Worth chapter of the Reformation Project, Bible studies, social events, and served as a moderator for a pastor's panel discussion on becoming affirming. She has shared her story with various groups, including social media channels for the documentary Pray Away by Multitude Films. Karrie has a master's degree from Dallas Theological Seminary, has been involved in voluntary ministry work for 15 years. Prior to joining Freedom Mom Hugs as executive director, Karrie worked in higher education at Texas Women's University for over 20 years. Karrie enjoys being back in her home state of Oklahoma and spending time with her now wife. This is a new thing. That's why I'm getting very excited. Her wife, Mandy, their chocolate lab, Jax, and adopted cat, Sydney. So welcome, Karrie, to Gay with God.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to just have a conversation with you about this.
I know. I'm excited too. I just couldn't wait to meet you. And you've got my heart already, because I had a lab. Her name was Dani, D-A-N-I, and she was like a reddish color. So I love that. All right, girl. I'm so excited. And we started to talk before this, and we had to shut ourselves up so that we didn't exclude anybody on the podcast. So please tell us your story.
All right. I grew up in Oklahoma. I wasn't raised in the church, but I attended with friends, and was invited to church at an early age. And I accepted Christ as my savior when I was 12 years old. Went to a Baptist church, and that's what you do. You go. They do an altar call at the end of the service. You go up to the front. I don't know many churches that still ask you to come up front now, but that's what we did in the 80s. There was an altar call. You go up to the front, they lay their hands on you, and you accept Christ as your savior. I remember that being a very, very impactful moment in my life. I've never forgotten it. I can still see it in my mind's eye. When that happened, it just made an impact on my life. And that's when I started reading the Bible, when I started getting to know who God was and Jesus and all the stories in the Bible. But I also knew at an early age that there was something different about me. I didn't know what it was. People were treating me differently. I was often called a tomboy. And, when that word was said to me, it was not a good thing. I knew when they were saying that to me that I was different.
Yeah.
And that it wasn't a good kind of different. But I had boyfriends all through junior high, high school, and even into college. Those relationships, looking back on it, they were difficult, complicated. There was something that just didn't feel right about it. It just didn't feel like home. It just didn't feel natural is a lot of, the word that a lot of people use. It just didn't feel natural to me. I met my first girlfriend in college. We were both Christians, and we talked a lot about God. We talked a lot about being gay. Was it right? Was it wrong? We didn't know. We just, we knew how we felt about each other. And that relationship lasted about 2 years. Wow. And we broke up, and I moved to Texas and started a job there. And then I met my second girlfriend. And the first thing that we did together was go to church. We met through mutual friends, and we went to church together. And so again, that relationship too was centered around our love for God, church, and just knowing that we were different, knowing that we were gay. I wasn't publicly out. My family knew at that time. I was bringing girls around, but we never really had this long conversation of coming out. We didn't have Facebook back then. So
right.
There was I didn't come out on Facebook back then, but my family knew, and my parents, it was just something that we didn't talk about. But after that second relationship, I just had that relationship was very conflicted. She didn't believe that being gay was right. She thought that it was wrong in God's eyes and that the Bible spoke against it. And so that caused our relationship. We dated for about a year, and our relationship was just so conflicted because of that. And then we went through a really hard breakup. And I just had a lot of questions about being gay and being Christian that I couldn't get past it. So I did a search on the internet, and I came across, I just did a search on being gay, being Christian, homosexuality, ex-gay, whatever that looked like. And I came across testimonies of people that were involved in a ministry called Exodus International. And this was early 2000, 2001. And I thought I had found it. I thought they have the answers to these questions that I've had about being gay and being Christian my whole life. They found it. They seemingly had changed their sexuality through a relationship with Jesus Christ, which I knew I already had, but I thought it was fragmented, or I thought there was something wrong with my relationship with God because I was gay. And I thought, if they can change, so can I. If they can change and they are living happy lives as heterosexual people, then I want that too.
Yeah.
So I started that journey. And it ended up being about 10-year journey for me. Ultimately 14 years of trying to change my sexuality, just dove head first into their teachings, their resources. I went to Exodus International conferences. I met a lot of the people. We called them ex-gay rock stars back then. So, they were there with their spouses. They were there with their kids. Actually, North Carolina was actually the first Exodus conference that I went to. It was there in Asheville.
I'm not surprised, but I am surprised it was in Asheville. Now that surprises me.
It was at some conference center there in Asheville. And my parents actually drove with me to that conference, and they were fully supportive of me trying to be straight. They didn't fully understand it, but they they were supportive of that. Read the resources, read the books, John and Ann Palk. I remember that being the first book that I read. Cy Rogers was another one, another resource, and just a dynamic speaker. And their teaching just got a hold of me. I thought, there are a lot of similarities in my story and their stories. So I was in counseling for many years, working on those childhood issues that Exodus International taught.
So with the counseling you went into, was that through the ex-gay ministry or a private counselor?
Oh, there were several.
Okay.
It wasn't, they weren't affiliated with Exodus International.
Okay.
They were Christian counselors, during that time, who were supporting me trying to be straight, who were encouraging, and for those listeners who are not familiar with Exodus International, their teaching was that something in your childhood contributed to you being gay. It was, could have been a rejection of your own gender, a poor relationship with your parents, or poor relationship specifically with your same-sex parent, or some kind of abuse, some kind of trauma. And those things, that was the teaching of Exodus, that those things contributed to you being gay. And if you just go back and you allow God to heal you and work on those issues through counseling, then you wouldn't be gay anymore.
Poof.
So
Poof.
Yes, poof. Yeah. And there for a while, I thought God had changed me. I didn't really feel attractions to women. And of course, now looking back on that, I pushed them away, whatever interest or whatever attraction that I had through any woman, I dismissed it and just worked through it like Exodus would teach. They use this phrase, you white knuckle it. So the analogy is that you hang on to the back of the pew, you white knuckle it until the attraction passes. So I thought God had changed me. And I also I always knew or believed that God was leading me into some type of ministry. I always felt that in my heart. And at the time, I thought he was leading me to be in ex-gay ministry.
Yeah.
So I went to seminary. So I have a master's degree in biblical studies. And after I graduated from seminary, I got involved in ex-gay ministry in the Dallas area called Living Hope. And I went there with the intention of helping other people become straight, because at the time I felt like I was straight, and I thought that God had changed me. And interesting enough, it was during that time where I really started to question my own. Yeah, there's that dog.
Yeah.
Question my own change. I started to question, once I got into Living Hope, I started questioning their practices of trying to help people become straight. And I also became attracted to someone during that time. And, the truth is that I allowed myself to feel those attractions and those feelings. And you know what? For the first time in 10 years, I felt alive. I felt alive, like, what am I missing out on in life? Why do I always have to push these feelings away or down or ignore them or whatever it is that I have to do?
So while you were pushing them down, you never then became attracted to men?
No, and I tried so hard. I did. I tried so hard. I thought while I was in seminary, I was just going to meet this great Christian man. Yeah. We were just going to click, get along, and, live that happy life, have some kids, that white picket fence thing. And I had some guy friends, and it never developed anything further than that.
Yeah.
So all of those things happening just sent me down another journey of like re-questioning the change in my life, whether that had happened or not. And I started questioning and started doing another internet search at that time. And I found Justin Lee's book called Torn. Mm. And I started reading his book, and I saw the website for Gay Christian Network at the time. And I still was just so skeptical. I thought, who are these heathens?
Yeah.
How can they be gay and Christian? I just don't get it. But I did call the women's minister at Living Hope, and I said, I don't know what's going on with me, but I cannot come back. I cannot be involved in this ministry. Mm-hmm. I have some things that I need to get figured out. Mm-hmm. And, it took another few years, probably 3 or 4 years, to be honest, for me to actually come out. And my acceptance of God's love for me literally happened in my living room floor. It was just me and God. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, God, I am not straight. And I've been on this journey. I did this for you, and there was some anger in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It really just rocked my world, because I knew I wasn't straight, and all of the hope that I had for finding a good guy, getting married, and proving to everyone that I was straight and that God had changed me, and that you can change. Mm-hmm. So there was all of that disappointment of dealing with all of that. And so I came out it was December 2016. And I'm telling you, it was the most freeing thing I have ever done. I felt God just say to me in my spirit, just let this go. It's getting in the way of my relationship with you. And because I was so focused on that thing, and I believed at the time that I was worried about my relationship with God. I thought, if I come out again, what's going to happen to my relationship with God? That was a big deal with me. Mm-hmm. But I came out, and he was still there. My relationship, and I've seen him in so many beautiful things since I came out. Mm-hmm. So now here I am 5 years later after coming out, and I just married the love of my life. We got married on October 4th, and she too is a Christian. She was also in ministry, actually, at a church in Texas, and they were encouraging. It was a women's ministry, but they were heavily focused on encouraging young ladies to be straight. That the gay lifestyle, it's a bad thing, and here's the pathway to be straight. Mm-hmm. So she was very much doing her own version of like an Exodus international style ministry. But she came out in, I believe, 2018. We met in 2019 at the Reformation Project chapter there in the Dallas area. And so here we are.
Yeah,
married.
So here you are, married to two ex-gay ministers.
Yeah, right.
Basically,
that's our
getting
story.
married. That's beautiful. And I love what you said about that God gave you the inclination that you trying to fight being your authentic self was getting in the getting in the way of the relationship with God. Not that we have to, be straight to have a relationship with God. We just have to trust, and we have to surrender ourselves and be who God created us to be, instead of what everybody tells us we should be.
Right.
And that anger, I resonated when you said you had some anger. And, I think that's the piece. Fear and anger were the two big things for me that stopped me from believing that I wouldn't go to hell if I was gay. It took me 30 years to figure that out, and it was really even after figuring out that I was going to claim my sexuality, I was still fearful. Because that indoctrination, growing up in the church and hearing it your whole life and having it said that way. But I have been increasingly less angry throughout the years, as I come closer and closer to understanding that I could be gay with God,
Yeah.
and that, you're right, it's so freeing to just drop all the stuff that everybody else, all the baggage that everybody else gave you. So that journey of finding your forever beloved and Mary, and we laughed earlier, people, because first there was the fiance, but now she's actually married because it happened right before we got, right here in October. So that was beautiful. Yeah. So tell me how hard that was to come to the place where you could commit yourself in marriage to a woman after this journey that you had.
You know what? We were just talking about this last night, Mandy and I. Our relationship really has been pretty easy. We started out as friends. Mm-hmm. We were friends for a good 3 months. And somewhere in there where we both, just kind of looked at each other or had that conversation of, there's something more going on here. Mm-hmm. And then we held hands. And that was just so electric to both of us. Because both of us had been single for 18 years.
Wow.
Both of us. Our journeys were so parallel in so many ways during that 18 years. But so it helped, obviously, that she is a Christian and that she is a believer and that we had that foundation to build on. We pray together. We read the Bible together. She journals a lot, so she'll journal and we'll talk through things. But she was really just coming out when I met her. So the biggest challenge that we've had is her coming out to her friends and her former, because they are former now, unfortunately, mm-hmm. Her former community that she was in ministry with, because they have rejected her. Her family has been just beautiful, accepting, but the friends in her life have been very hurtful and have just rejected her. And so she lost a lot, on that side. But yeah, it's really strange to us because our relationship really has been easy. This part of it has been easy. Mm-hmm. Now, before I met Mandy, mm-hmm. That was harder, mm-hmm. Just trying to be patient, continuing to pray for, was not praying for meeting a man anymore.
Yeah.
My prayer was, where is she? Mm-hmm. God, what is she going through? And I would pray for someone that I hadn't even met yet, honestly. Aww. I would pray for, what is she going through? Where is she? How can I pray for her? And I would just pray to God, just, can I meet her? When will we meet?
That is so beautiful. Praying for her before you even knew her. That is so beautiful.
Because I did that when I was looking for a guy. Uh-huh. So I'm like, why wouldn't I do it when I am now? I know accepting as that I'm gay. Why wouldn't I pray for that partner?
Mm-hmm. Well, you just rock. I don't know if anybody else has ever done that. I made a list once of everything I wanted in my married life. I just never put girl or boy, which is so funny. I made this whole list, but it never spent. It was just assumed, of course, I guess, that it would have to be a boy, but I never. So I got everything on my list, and it just so happens that it was a woman.
Well, that's funny because she and I both had lists too.
Oh, that's too funny. Really? It's a gay thing, people. We make lists.
we do make lists. Here's a list, and she checked all the boxes.
Oh, wow.
She did.
That is so cool. Yeah. Well, so I, with her being in the ministry of trying to help women change their sexuality, I'm sure that everybody in that circle, the friends she made there and the people she was working for and with, were not probably as enlightened as we would want them to be. And so then that leads me into the question of what happened with your relationships. When you, I know you you quit the ex-gay ministry. I'm assuming that you kind of got blackballed from the folks in the group, and that your parents were trying to be supportive, but wonder how that worked out with your family and friends and the people that you were involved with.
Yeah, sure. Yes. So once I made that phone call to the women's minister at Living Hope, she might have contacted me maybe one more time after that. But, for ex-gay ministry and conversion therapy, it's a very controlled atmosphere anyway. We could not know the last names of anyone we were in ministry with. We couldn't be friends on Facebook. We couldn't do anything outside of that atmosphere. It was very, very controlling. If you've seen the movie Boy Erased, that is a very good depiction of conversion therapy.
Okay.
So no, I didn't meet or see or hear from anyone from Living Hope after that. And my parents, I came out to my parents first before I came out publicly to everyone, which I did on Facebook, which we all seem to be doing nowadays. But I called my parents and I said, look, there's something that I have to tell you, and it's hard. I don't want to disappoint you. But I'm gay. I said, you guys know that I've been trying to change my sexuality for so many years, and I deserve to be loved. I deserve to have relationship. I deserve to, build a home and a life with someone. And my mom cried at the time, and we kind of ended the phone conversation of, we just have to agree to disagree, that kind of thing. And we didn't really talk about it for about another year. And then my mom started asking me, well, are you dating anyone? And I wasn't at the time. So she was trying, a little bit. But I have to tell you that I am such a believer that people can change, because my mom has changed. She loves my wife.
Aww.
She loves my wife. My dad walked me down the aisle to get married. Yes. We were married on a beach in Key West. And my mom, I'll call her on the phone, and like the first thing out of her mouth is, well, how's Mandy? She wants to talk to Mandy. And that is just the beauty of change, and working for Free Mom Hugs. It has been a beautiful thing for me to see all of these moms and dads and allies who love and accept their kids. I've seen it in my own life. And I see it in the work that we do on a daily basis with Sarah's story. But yes, my parents, they may not understand. But they know how happy I am with Mandy. They see that.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things people are surprised about, is that when we become authentic, our whole vibration changes, and we bring back to us the vibration that we set. So when we're, having this positive, loving, authentic vibration, everybody's attracted to that. When we're in pain, when we're in fear and anger, we're sending out messages that, being gay, the struggle of being gay or not gay is bad for you. It makes it look bad for us because we are so wound up in all of the junk. But when we can release the junk, we attract back to us the people and the experiences and the feelings that we're feeling. And I just love that once you were able to come in to your authentic self, not only did you bring Mandy into your vibrational circle, you prayed her in, is what you did. You prayed that girl in. And your parents, going through their transition of getting the right information in their mind instead of having a little bit of idea and probably pushing that away throughout the years, they were able to quit pushing and resisting and just get to accepting. Yeah. Yay for them.
Yes, it's been a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah.
I never thought I would see it. I'm being really honest about that. My mom was not accepting. She got this scowl on her face, every time
Mm.
we talked about it. But
Yeah.
she loves it.
Yeah. I love
And the
that.
dog agrees.
The dog.
The timing.
You keep speaking, Jax. Jax sounds like a very old soul.
So there's two. Yeah, Clayton, and he is an old soul.
Uh-huh. I can tell that raspy
Yeah.
part. I'm making every effort to support your mom. That's great.
Yeah, it's true.
Wow, what a beautiful story. That is just beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
So now that you're the exit, I can't say that word.
It's Monday.
It is Monday. We talked about that too. Executive director. I'm getting the two X's messed up. But so you're doing that. And are you still involved with the Reformation Project?
I am. Because of COVID, they haven't had a whole lot going on. And I don't live in the Dallas area anymore. I'm now in Oklahoma. And so I'm not involved in the chapter. But they have a conference coming up at the end of October that I'm going to. So it'll be really good to reconnect with a lot of people.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, this will be my fourth or fifth Reformation Project conferences. And the Reformation Project is an organization. Their mission is to create conversations around LGBTQ in the church. They want to advance the conversations, advance equality in the church. The executive director and founder is Matthew Vines, and he wrote the book God and the Gay Christian.
Okay.
And they're very heavily focused. That's why I love the organization so much on God, the Bible, and the church. They have a very strong love and foundation for keeping their mission focused on that. And Kathy Baldock, I don't know if you've heard of her, but I believe her book is called Walking the Bridges Canyon. She has done so much work for the LGBTQ community. She'll be speaking there. I believe Jen Hatmaker is another keynote speaker.
I know her.
This year, and they do have an online. You can register and be an online participant if you can't make it out to Phoenix.
Okay, wonderful.
So
yeah, Jen is on my Facebook list.
Friends
on Facebook. Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
it's such a small world, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I followed her story for several years before she came out as affirming. And then, of course, her daughter came out just this past year. So,
wow. Well, I think that so many things are changing. And even though I don't think every church will ever become affirming or understand it, but I think there are so many more. I mean, than when I was growing up. I knew no churches back in the day that would ever say it was okay. Yeah.
No, this wasn't something that you could even talk about. I could not talk to anyone about it. There was so much shame. And in those days, I always hate to say back in those days, but it's true.
It's true.
Back in those days.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, this was the abomination. Oh, yeah. I remember hearing the sermons on homosexuality. This is an abomination. It's the worst sin. I remember having to overcome those sermons.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so sad what that does to us as children. It shapes our whole entire life. And then when if you finally, and that's why the Gay with God podcast was something I just felt called to do, because there are still Christians to this day. And how many of us back in the day were suicidal and never completed an attempt, but many people did, and some people still do. And it's just so much pressure and so much fear around what's going to happen if you stay in this gay lifestyle. lifestyle instead of, it's not like I'm trying on a new pair of pants, people. It's not like a lifestyle choice. There was nothing I could do about it. And it just took forever. And there was so much pain involved. And so that's why I felt so led to do the Gay with God podcast, and why I'm writing my book, because I just don't want people to continue to believe they have that they have to make that choice. Are you going to be, gay with God, or are you going to, end your life? And I just can't bear it. I just can't bear it. And so that's, that's why I wanted to do it, because I didn't have any other, there were no mom huggers. There were no affirming churches. There was no one in my inner circle that was even gay that I knew of. And so I had nothing to bounce it off on,
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've had to overcome decades of misinformation about what being gay is. And I mean, it's like we were set up for sure in the 80s. I too had those thoughts of suicide. I mean, I could just not see, I could not have imagined the life that I have now with Mandy. As a married woman. I could not have imagined that in 1986, And I would argue that every person who has an idea that they might be gay has this thought, I don't want to be gay. I would argue, and maybe now it's a little bit better, but for sure back in the 80s, I for sure did not want to be gay. And even when I was trying to change my sexuality, I did not want to be gay. I didn't. Society is hard. My relationship with God was hard, just relationships in general.
And it's dangerous.
Yes.
You walk down the wrong street holding hands, or God forbid that you kiss and get caught. I mean, it's dangerous.
Yes.
Sue and I were actually going to, after graduate school is where I met her, and we were going, we decided we were going to go live in Wyoming. I love mountains. I love rugged terrain. I love all of that. And I love distance. I like to be away. I don't need too many close neighbors. And so we decided we were going to go live in Wyoming. And we took a trip specifically to go to Laramie, Wyoming, because that seemed like, it was supposed to be a college town. And so there would be some kind of maybe, culture there. And we drove through this little neighborhood in Laramie. We never did find the college, but we drove through this, and there was it was so desolate. I mean, there was one beautiful tree, and I took a picture of it. And then we both looked at each other and were like, well, maybe we do need a little bit more of a, so I don't know what the college town looks like, but it was right after that Matthew Shepard was murdered.
Oh, wow.
And so we had just come home from the trip, and then we learned that Matthew Shepard had been murdered. And it was like, okay, not Laramie. That's probably not our best bet. But, now we're in 2021, and, our trans brothers and sisters are still being murdered just for being trans. And legislation is still so tenuous when it comes to our basic rights and our healthcare rights and equality. So we've come a very, very long way, but that's why I said, we're not done yet. We have so much more to accomplish. And my biggest pet peeve is that our rights don't seem to be solid in stone. It sways like a weeping willow with each administration that gets voted into office. Oh, we're going to give you our rights. Here's the pen that says so. No, we're going to take a pen and give your rights away. And that just drives me crazy. So we're far from done.
We are. There's still a lot of work to be done. Yes, I agree with you. A lot has changed in 30 years.
Yes.
But yes, in the church, what's really hard for Mandy and I right now is, we've been involved in some type of ministry for 15, 20 years. And, she worked for a church. So she cannot get a job working for a church right now because she's gay. She's openly gay. And yes, there are churches out there that are affirming and, they do have some jobs, but it's like, where do we do ministry? Where do we
Mhm.
share the God-given gifts for the church and for ministry? Where do we share those? Because that's where the church, they dismiss us because
Yeah.
we're gay. And
Yes.
yet we have God-given skills
Yes.
and talents and purpose.
Yeah.
Um,
This past year when I was trying to get myself, because I still was very spiritual and I still craved that relationship with God, but I couldn't use the word God because it came with that loaded abomination going to hell attached to it. And so I'd say creator of all that is. And it was my mission because I'm creative that way, you see. and and so the whole point of this last year, I guess, for me was being able to do my connection back to God, to be able to say the word, and some people said that, the Gay with God podcast title is a little, put offish for some people because it has the word God and it's so specific. And I'm like, well, that was for me, because I was finally able to say gay with God. And it's the only thing that resonated with me in order to do that podcast. But I understand it's the God of everybody's understanding, because it doesn't matter where you live or what faith you're a part of. If you're gay, there's probably that same stigma that goes around that you can't be gay with the God of your understanding, because it's all supposed to be bad. So when I went on that journey, several of my friends kept saying, well, I was going to start an LGBTQ meetup group here in Asheboro, North Carolina, the reddest place you can possibly be. And and I'm like, well, we need free space because I don't, I'm not paying for a space. And they said, well, why don't you come over to the Episcopal Church? We have meeting rooms. And I'm like, you want me to bring a bunch of gay people to an Episcopal church? I said, how do you think I'm going to sell that? And they're like, no, it's very affirming. I said, the Episcopal Church is affirming. I said, does that mean they're going to pray for us while we're there? Or, no. You need to meet Father Joe, and he's so accepting. And I said, and I really didn't believe it, but they were absolutely right, that the Episcopal Church, even here in Little Asheboro, I mean, it is very, not just affirming. They're just not affirming me. I mean, it's expected that I am just as, I'm going to heaven just like everybody else, and that my sexuality has nothing to do, with my relationship with God, unless I allow it to, or, it's just very affirming. The thing is, though, that you could find a church that's affirming to do ministry, but wouldn't it be even cooler to find a church that would, supposedly, that would allow us to come in and tell the truth about what's going on and have open dialogues with people who need it in the churches where they're being, shoved down and taught the wrong thing. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. One day.
Yeah, one day.
One day. It may be 50 years down the road. I hope not.
Yeah.
But yes, that's the hope.
Well, you can start your own churches. Just start your own church, girl.
Just start my own church. May
if there ain't one, build one. We'll do a fundraiser.
that's an idea.
But I think that the Brandy Lynn, a lady down in Mississippi, they started a church down in Mississippi, and it's not been easy, but it's something that was very powerful for them. And I can't remember the movie, but they did a documentary about the work they were doing down in Mississippi, and it's just, it was beautiful. They were the first gay interracial couple. Was when it became legal. She performed the first gay interracial couple marriage right there on the steps of the courthouse. I know.
Wow.
I know, pretty rocking. Yeah. So there are possibilities, absolutely. And if we don't see it where we are, we may be called to create it.
Right.
So I believe in you too. I do. I think you've got a lot of power behind you, and if it's meant to be, you absolutely, can do it. So what else is on your heart to share with the folks before I ask my final question?
I think a lot about people who are struggling with their faith and their sexuality, and just that journey. And I just want to encourage you to keep going.
Yeah.
Dreams do come true. They do. And I am evidence of that in my relationship with Mandy. I really never thought, 5 years ago, post trying to be straight, I just thought I was going to be single the rest of my life. There was a lot of talk about celibacy, or like, this is the thorn in your side. Being gay is the thorn in your side. It's just something that you have to live with for the rest of your life. And meeting Mandy was just, she's an answer to a prayer, most definitely. And I just want to encourage people, you're beautiful being gay. God loves you, and there's nothing wrong with you, is what I would want to say to anyone who is struggling with their faith and sexuality, or they're worried about losing their family or disappointing their family, or maybe they're on the verge of coming out. I know it's hard. I think every gay person would tell you, yes, it's the most anxiety real thing that you'll ever do, but it is the most freeing thing you may ever do.
Yes.
And you never know what's on the other side of that for you, like true love and marriage and a family. So I just want to encourage anyone who's listening. There are good things ahead.
There's
Right?
going to be, yes, there are good things ahead. Absolutely. And the final question that I always ask people, and you intuitively knew it, is what is one thing you would share with someone that's struggling that you wish you had been told? And, if we had been told that, is there anything else that you would add to that? Like, what is something that would have helped you through the struggle? I love all that you just said about God loves us and there are great things that are happening, but what do you think would have helped you to get through it?
Just, I think, is believing that God loved me and that I could have a relationship with him, that was not going to go away, that being gay doesn't keep me from having a relationship with God.
Yes.
And then, everybody goes through their own anger and the frustration and disappointment and all of that. And it's really people that we get angry at, right? It's their interpretation of the Bible. I mean, that's what we were taught, back in the 80s. The sermons and, what preachers were telling us back then. So I just, God loves you. You're beautiful. Find some people who love you and accept you and who will go on this journey with you.
Beautiful. And now you have your forever Mandy to go on the rest of your journey with you.
Forever Mandy. I like that.
You're welcome. Karrie, thank you so much for honoring us with your story. You are a light to the world, and you continue to serve and be a part of a very positive, energetic field that will definitely heal people. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed being here.
I enjoyed it too. And I want to thank our listeners for coming back each week, supporting, sharing, and subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to see more information and links to connect with Mandy, well, maybe with Mandy too. Now I've got Forever Mandy on my head. With Karrie and Mandy.
There you go.
Go to the Gay with God show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. If you are questioning whether you can be gay and be in a relationship with God, if you are authentically gay, God has always been within you. Even when you didn't know it, you have always been gay with the God of your understanding. Thank you, everybody. See you next week. Stay tuned, and I'll tell you how you can join the Gay with God community and check out our Facebook group called, of course, Gay with God. See you next week. I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.